Cryptalkers. This is the first Cryptalk in podcast in English. I'm so excited to be with everyone here. We have chat within this live, so you can just type on the commentaries and to talk with us. As you can see, we have a good person here, just Mike Golden here.
Mike Goldin, yes.
Thank you so much for being here. Just to talk with the people. This is the first English Cryptalk podcast. I'm so excited. So you are the number one.
Amazing. I'm excited too. As I was saying, this is my first podcast or media appearance since before COVID. So it's new for me too.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm happy. You are the number one at the Cryptalk, and I am the number one to you too.
Yes, yes. It's a first time for everything.
Yeah, that's great. So welcome to the Cryptalk space.
Thank you.
So normally the Cryptalk podcast is always in Portuguese. So this is the first to be in English because I want more. I can give more opportunity for the Brazilian guys.
Sure.
So all the podcasts will be with subtitles in Portuguese later. But right now we have a live on YouTube.
Hello.
Hey guys, hi mom, hi dad. I'm joking. They don't speak English.
Do they watch your podcast?
Not in English because they don't speak.
But they'll watch in Portuguese.
Yeah, all the podcasts.
Okay.
Is
Do your parents understand blockchains and cryptocurrency?
No, they just say, yeah, you are good or
Okay.
you are not good or I don't understand anything you said, so try again.
Well, if they watch enough, I'm sure they'll become experts.
I hope so much. My parents work in the public system in Brazil.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so it's more traditional thing, and I am like the different person with like the I just started in the entrepreneur
Sure,
world,
sure.
and I started in the blockchain entrepreneur world. So it's
Yes.
totally hard.
Very far out. Very far out.
Totally that. So yeah, I'm so happy you are here. So thanks so much for your time. Um, so I will start with the most important question. In Portuguese, we have a joke. We ask, "Who are you?" in the bread lineup, but
Okay.
in English, it totally does make sense. So I just started with asking, "Who are you?" Mike Golden.
Well, yeah, I'm Mike.
Great.
I live in New York. I work for Consensus, which is a large-ish company in blockchain world. I'm a software developer. Um, I've been working in blockchain since 2015. I started knowing nothing. I got hired by my company. Back in 2015, nobody knew how blockchains worked. There were like, I don't know, probably fewer than 1,000 people on planet Earth who like knew anything. I was just a college student and I was looking for literally a summer job. I mean, I could tell that story about how I started at Consensus. But yeah, I'm a software developer, and I've been a cryptocurrency enthusiast for a long time. I was always drawn to the notion that with blockchains and cryptocurrencies, we could build a new social, political, and economic operating system for the
Whoa.
planet. You know, powerful ideas. And yeah, I've been stuck here ever since.
Whoa, and that's amazing because so are you in the crypto space for like 8 years now?
Yeah, I started in 2015. I was a college student at Columbia University in New York. I was a computer science student,
Great.
um, and I was I was looking for summer jobs. And I was applying for a summer job with the NSA, the U.S. National Security Agency.
Mhm.
Barack Obama was the president at the time, and you know, I liked Barack Obama. I still like Barack Obama, and I thought I could do a good thing for the country by, you know, working for the National Security Agency.
Great.
So I applied for a job with them. They took me down to Fort Meade, Maryland, where their headquarters is. You have to get a security clearance to work with them. Now, my problem was I smoke weed.
Whoa.
I smoke marijuana. We're gonna get spicy on this podcast, and you're not allowed to do any drugs if you work for the NSA, and they make you take a polygraph test, a lie detector test, and I'm a bad liar. They hook me up to this machine, and this guy is asking me, "Have you ever been an enemy of the state?" No. Have you ever defaced government property? No. Have you done drugs in the last 12 months? No. You know, I'm a horrible, horrible liar, and the machine immediately So I didn't get the job with the NSA. I was like desperate for a job. I found this random company called Consensus doing this fucking, sorry, I shouldn't curse on the
No,
podcast.
no, you
Yeah,
can do anything.
doing this blockchain thing, this Ethereum blockchain thing, which I had never heard of. But I just wanted a job and I applied. And
How did you find the job on LinkedIn or?
on like the Columbia University jobs board, there was a posting.
Oh, interesting.
And I almost didn't take it. I wound up with an offer from like a different company that was not in the blockchain space, but they had like a real business model. Consensus was very researchy. Ethereum didn't actually exist yet. Like Ethereum hadn't launched yet. And I almost didn't take the job. I called a friend of mine to ask for her advice, and I was like, I could do this thing. It's like a real company that have a business plan, or I could do this like very far out researchy thing. And my friend said, do the research thing because you may not have another opportunity to do that in your career. So I went with Consensus, and 8 years later, I'm still there.
Whoa.
So it's been my career. Yeah. So yeah, since 2015, I've been in blockchain world, and it started because I failed a lie detector test.
That's the best story ever. That's really great.
Yeah.
And
I quickly fell really in love with it. Before I had been a computer science student, before I was at Columbia University, I was at a different college, a hippie school in Vermont. I was studying anthropology. And
anthropology, oh my God.
what really excited me about blockchains is that they are a very social technology. They're technology with social and political ramifications.
Yeah.
And they're very intoxicating in that way. It's like once you have uh, been a part of this project to, change the world,
Totally.
it's kind of hard to go from that to like writing web apps. It's hard to like step back from that very like intoxicating political project. Um, when I started in 2015, I was mentioning this to you earlier, things were very different than they are now. It's kind of like unimaginable how different things were. 99% of people who were in the space at that time had got into it because they were trying to use Bitcoin to buy drugs on the internet.
Whoa.
So it was a lot of weird people, crypto anarchists, a lot of crypto anarchists and like
I
hardcore
really have the
libertarians.
out of this
Yeah.
yet.
Um, and it really was then. It was about there was a lot of anger at the government. This was not like so long after the 2008 financial crisis. A lot of people were still very upset about the bank bailouts at that time. And the mission was to like send the US dollar to zero. The mission was to like, blow up the financial system and replace it with something better and new. As the industry has developed and matured, we've become rather integrated, I think, with the legacy financial system. And a lot of the initial goals of like blowing up the world order are more less in the mainstream of blockchains now. Now I miss those old days. That was fun. Now it's all very buttoned up and businesslike. But
I'm sure.
yeah, it's been a journey in
A
blockchain
really
world.
good journey. How old are you now?
I am 31 now. Yeah, I
Okay.
guess I was 24, I think, when I started at Consensus, 23 or 24, something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I've kind of, I think about this a lot. I really grew up at Consensus and kind of in this industry.
Totally. And before Consensus, what did you work at?
I was a student.
Mhm.
Consensus was the first and is the only job I've ever had,
Oh my God.
which is really weird because Consensus is a very weird company. And so I don't know what it's like to have a real job. But yeah, I before Consensus I was a student. And then
Mm.
I've never left. So
So yeah, that's really interesting. Your first job at the blockchain company is
yes.
really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Consensus is a big company now. We've raised a lot of money from investors. I mean, we've raised hundreds of millions of dollars at this point. Um, Back then, I was in the first cohort of interns to join Consensus. Consensus probably had about 15 people in the US, maybe 15 others around the world at that time. So it was a small company. Now
Hmm.
Consensus is 800 plus people, something like that. Um, and it's much more back in the day, I feel like an old man always talking about back in the day, but Consensus would throw cool parties and it was like a hip New York City, Brooklyn startup. Now it's a corporation. It's buttoned up. So
But
yeah,
I'm sure it's still cool. Yeah.
it's yeah, I'm very spoiled. So kind of is it still cool? I mean, the thing is, I'm not officially representing Consensus here.
Yeah, it
I
should.
paid my own way to this conference. Consensus did not pay for me to come here, so we'll go slightly uncensored for this podcast. Consensus, yeah, as I said, it's a corporation now.
Mhm.
It used to be a much more radical organization, almost a revolutionary
Mhm.
organization.
Yeah, yeah, but I think it's normal, no?
Yes.
Yeah, well, because consensus it started when everything started, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Lubin, the founder, who is a absolute um, genius, I
Yes.
think. I have so much respect for Joe, and I'm not just saying this because he's my boss, I'm on camera.
Yeah,
I
we know that.
Yeah, no, no, but for real, Joe is the thing about Joe is he's a true believer. Um, he is a true believer in the uh power and potential of blockchains, like really in his heart, he wants to live in this science fiction future that blockchains enable. Um, he's extremely smart and he understands blockchains better than 99% of people in the industry. So not only is he like, the CEO of this large and important company now, but he's like a super gigabrain, like technical guy. And he's always been an inspiring leader, I would say. Just like the combination of his intelligence, his foresight, his deep technical knowledge. He's I think an easy guy for like an engineer to fall in love with. So yeah, Joe started Consensus. He was one of the founders of the Ethereum project. I forget what his role was with the Ethereum Foundation in the early days, but of course, Vitalik was like, Vitalik is
Is
he's the
Vitalik.
guy, but Joe was there, and he had the vision that we're building this Ethereum thing. There needs to be companies that are building applications for Ethereum if people are actually going to use it. So he started Consensus to begin building those applications. That when Ethereum was ready, there would be actual use cases for it. Um,
Makes sense.
one funny story is when I was an intern back in the summer of 2015, Consensus for a long time had a project called Ujo Music, which doesn't exist anymore, but it went through many iterations over the years. Basic idea is it's like iTunes without Apple.
Mhm.
Musical artists should be able to have a direct relationship with consumers and, not have anybody like take a cut of their earnings. Joe loves music, by the way, so he was always happy to, fund this project.
Great.
Um, Ujo, a very early version of it, was the one of the first projects I worked on at Consensus, along with a few other people. And me and this guy Simon de la Rouvier worked together to write the smart contracts. We were working with Imogen Heap, the
Mhm.
musical artist. She was really into blockchains really early, and she like recorded a song and like gave us the rights to publish it on Ujo. So we wrote this smart contract, and like people sent us Ether to like get access to this Imogen Heap song. This was in like September of 2015,
Whoa.
and at that time, I believe we like briefly held the record for like the most interacted with program on Ethereum. I believe we were also, I think, this might not totally be true, but I believe we were the first Ethereum smart contract that had a user interface attached to it. We were working with, I believe it was John McDowell at the time, who wrote the UI. And things were so like all the developer tools that exist today did not exist back then. I mean, it was really like bare bones. You had to be doing low level stuff, understanding things that, now there's tons of abstractions around that like keep you safe as a developer. I mean, I remember such an old man. I remember back in the day. Like I remember so I worked on that. One of my other jobs that summer is there was an Ethereum client implementation being written in the programming language called Haskell. And I was working on like build pipelines for it. But I was also using it during a hackathon once to try to build an application. Um, and I found like a reproducible crash that could like take this Ethereum client offline. Anyway, things were just very, very there were a lot of sharp edges back then. The other crazy thing is like these days in Ethereum, smart contract security is a huge topic, and has been for years and years and years. But it's amazing back then how naive we were about smart contract security. We really didn't think much about it. Like we didn't think it would be that hard. And then I think it was 2016 when the DAO hack happened, that famous the DAO hack, which introduced this novel concept of the reentrancy bug. And after that, it was like, oh shit, we gotta like take security more seriously. But yeah, it was a very, very different world back then. Things have advanced enormously.
Oh
Um,
my I love all the history. I want to know deeply all the histories more. But thank you so much. Um, what we have, I have a lot of questions to talk with
sure.
you.
And I'm sorry if I'm rambling. Feel free to interrupt me.
No, totally. I just want to absorb all the knowledge.
But
Yeah. So I'm thinking about the ICO boom
yes,
because we said about the 2015.
yes,
So like you were close for all that things.
yes. So yeah, I was there in 2017. Y- you know, um, as I said, in the early days, really people were not thinking about getting rich on Ethereum. It really was this utopian project to change the world in a positive way. And then for some reason, people started getting rich. Like the values of cryptocurrencies started to rise. It was, I don't know, a speculative asset that people were very interested in. And I remember where I was the night. I remember where I was the night that Ether hit $40 for the first time, and I was like, "This is insane! $40 Ether. I need to sell everything. This is crazy." Uh, and someone convinced me not to. And then I remember where I was the night Ether hit $100, which was like May of 2017. I was at this. It was like this kind of fancy party that Consensus was throwing,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know, 24, 25 years old. I'm in like way over my head in like every sense. I'm at this fancy dinner party and I'm like looking on my phone as like Ether hits $100 for the first time.
Mhm.
But yeah, so the ICO boom. ICOs are definitely out of fashion today for various reasons. Regulatory reasons, like U.S. regulatory agencies, don't look kindly on
Mhm.
ICOs. Um, and also game theoretic reasons.
Mhm.
A lot of projects that did ICOs found that it's actually not an effective way to distribute tokens to the most interested users. You'll end
Yeah.
up distributing tokens to the greediest people, but who don't necessarily even care about your project. So it's not good for game theory. It's not good for regulation. Now, at the time, I'll say in 2017, these days it's very, very clear what the U.S. government's position is. Back then, it was not clear at all. Now, I'm not a lawyer or anything. I've always just been a software developer, but certainly I was, involved in conversations all throughout the company at that time. And yeah, it was very, very unclear and arguable at that time that ICOs, would be legal under US law. That turned out to be, wrong, but all I'm saying is, at least with the group of people that I was with at Consensus, we believed that we were like pushing the envelope for what this technology could do, like to enable new organizational models for people to interact with one another and be incentivized to perform useful actions within a system without like a coordinating entity. That was the thing we were really interested in. And we didn't necessarily think it would go against US regulations. That's what we were interested in. A lot of people realized that ICOs were a way to make a lot of money in a short amount of time with little effort. And there were a lot of scams in 2017. Things that were just there were plenty of ICOs that had, really good intentions. They really, meant to do something and they failed on their merits, there were more ICOs, I think, at that time, which were outright scams, projects that never had any intention of like building anything, but which just wanted to take money in, and then the founders would like disappear. That was very disappointing and demoralizing. Um, and at the time, you know, we were thinking a lot about how do we mitigate this? How do we like, move the industry, away from this type of thing? Now, at the time, I was staffed to a project that Consensus was doing. Uh, I was a software developer on this project. We were working with a company in California. We were consulting for this company, which wanted to do an ICO to it was a company in the advertising technology space. In advertising technology, I learned this on the project, tons of fraud. And I don't work in ad tech, so I'll say this, freely. Every single person in the advertising supply chain is like stealing from the person in front of them on the supply chain. And everyone knows this, but like this insane amount of theft is necessary to, well, keep the industry functioning as it is anyway. Anyway, we were working on this project to uh, try to find a way to use a crypto economic incentive game to align people within the supply chain such that they would not be incentivized to steal from one another. And in the course of doing this project, I'm like 25 at the time. I wrote smart contracts for an ICO, um, you know, as a Consensus employee for this consulting agreement that we were in. That was a wild experience. I remember like the day of the ICO. I mean, my heart just pounding as we kind of count down to the block where it was going to hit, and happened very very quickly. And it's like, oh my God, crazy. I was much too young to be writing code responsible for that amount of money. Um, so, but the more interesting thing that I got involved in through that experience was I became fascinated by this idea of utilizing cryptocurrencies and crypto economic incentive games to organize human behavior. So rather than telling someone what to do, you give them an autonomous system. A game creates an incentive for them to take certain actions. So if you think about a sport, football or baseball, whatever, there's kind of no reason for like, why does a baseball player, hit the ball and then run to first base? Like that's just the rules of the game, right? And they're incentivized to do it because people like to watch talented baseball players, whatever. Um, so anyway, I'm making this a really long story. I wound up
Yeah.
I wound up inventing, essentially in collaboration with many other people, this type of crypto system called a token-curated registry. I was motivated. I saw all these scams that were going on. I saw all these ICOs that were useless. Like, even ones that weren't scams, a lot were just like useless. People were basically selling what I would call arcade tokens. There's no reason to do that. Just let people pay in US dollars or some stable coin, whatever. So I wanted to create a crypto system which would have an intrinsic token, which would be a necessary element of a system that could live forever. So I wanted a system which utilized a token which was intrinsic to its functioning in the sense that using any other in its place would damage the system's normal functioning, and which could continue to function indefinitely in the absence of its creators. Now, like Bitcoin proof of work works this way. There's no human who organizes Bitcoin proof of work, but like just the game kind of programs people to come play it. And the more people who come play the game, the more secure Bitcoin becomes. It's a powerful idea. So the way token-curated registries worked, and I wrote a paper about this, which you could still Google and find. It became very popular at the time and turned a lot of people on to crypto systems, which is the thing I'm most proud of the legacy of that. Um, the idea was a token-curated registry is a crypto system for curating lists. Very simple. Now, lists are everywhere in society. You're a podcast host. You would love for your podcast to be on a list of the best podcasts, right? Sure. Like you want to be on that list because if you're on that list, you're going to get more listeners, right?
Yeah.
And likewise, listeners of podcasts, they want to have access to a high quality list of what the best podcasts are. Not just a list that you can, buy your way onto, but a list where, it's actually been curated, where there's real thought that goes into what are the best podcasts.
Yeah.
So there are consumers who want high quality lists, and there are candidates, podcast hosts, who want to be included in high quality lists. So the way the TCR works, we have three entities: candidates, consumers, and curators. Curators can purchase the Token-Curated Registry's intrinsic token. So there's a token associated with each Token-Curated Registry. This gives them rights to vote in a curation game. So if you want to be on this list, you as a podcast host, you would buy a small amount of tokens to put down as a deposit in order to incentivize curators to review your application. So you say, I host the Cryptalk podcast. I'm going to put down $100 in this Token-Curated Registry's intrinsic token. What do you think? The curators will look at your application. They'll listen to the podcast. If they think that you're a good candidate for the list, a certain period of time will pass, maybe 2 weeks. You get onto the list. Um, your deposit will remain locked up in the registry. But if they listen to, well, not your podcast, but say someone else's podcast, and they say, this podcast isn't very good. If we let this podcast onto the list,
You hope it's not mine?
no, it wouldn't be yours. If we let this podcast onto the list, it's going to be a lower quality list, and then consumers won't care about it. If consumers don't care about it, candidates aren't going to care about it. They're going to stop buying our token. Candidates drive fundamental demand for the token. And so what a curator can then do is they can put down a matching deposit to challenge your application. So there are two deposits at stake of equal size. And then the curator community, they can vote using token-weighted voting. So those who have more at stake get more say in the voting process. And then depending on which side wins, one of those deposits will be forfeited and will be distributed to voters who voted on the winning side of the vote. And then the person who put their deposit down, they get a special dispensation as well because they put their capital at risk. So this is a self-sustaining system because you don't need any administrator for it. The curators are incentivized to curate a high-quality list in an ongoing way. They want to keep consumers interested in the list by making sure it's high quality. If consumers are interested, candidates will be interested in applying. Candidates drive fundamental demand for the token. It's self-sustaining in that way. Furthermore, you can't replace this token with anything else, because if you use US dollars, for example, or DAI or Ether or anything that's disconnected from the intrinsic value of the TCR, the price of the asset will not be responsive to the quality of the list. So without an intrinsic token, the incentive game doesn't work at all. So the token-curated registry had these nice properties of, legitimately requiring an intrinsic token to function in a system that required no human oversight. It would function autonomously forever, the same way that Bitcoin would. A lot of people were really interested in this idea. Various projects launched subsequently, which used token-curated registries. My team at Consensus at that time, we built the first open source implementation of a token-curated registry. This was used by various projects. That was a fun time. So like very, at the time, cutting edge, like smart contract work. It was fun. It wound up being challenging in actuality to get TCRs to function in that era exactly as we wanted them to. There were various problems we didn't foresee. For example, small holders of the token who might want to participate in the voting game, if their stake is small, their potential payout from reward for voting is small, and the gas fees on Ethereum could actually outweigh like the size of their stake. There weren't voting delegation mechanisms that existed at that time. Basically, we struggled to get high participation on the TCR. But if you look at a lot of, 5 years later or whatever it is, if you look at a lot of DAO designs today, a lot of them, I think, take a lot of inspiration from that, token curation process. And a lot of things have improved since then. So I think like the DNA of the token curated registry idea like lives on, and it's kind of cool to see. It's kind of like my baby in a sense. Not that I take any credit for the great things that all the other, all these people who have, done this successfully.
Yeah, but you
Um,
have it a lot. As a
yeah,
number one, you have it a lot.
yeah. Anyway, that's a long rambling story about the ICO boom of 2017. Then there was a long bear market. Things became very depressing for a time. Uh, yeah, but that was 2017 for me. Wild time.
That's great. It's so good to know when the story started, because for like for us in Brazil, it's very new to talk about this kind of things. I started in the crypto space like 1 year ago.
Mhm.
Like basically, I completed 1 year like 2 days ago.
Okay, congratulations.
And I started in an event called Ethereum Rio
Okay,
from Rio de Janeiro.
cool.
So it's like everything. It's so interesting to talk about the consensus, because consensus was the project to work at the Ethereum.
Sure, sure.
And like 1 year ago, I started my crypto job at the Ethereum too. So
Yes.
it's so interesting to see how the things worked after 1 year. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
so deeply, and yeah. But yeah, I'm very happy. So thanks so much to talk all the history about the ICO. It's
Of
so
course.
good to talk if someone was really living in that time.
Mm.
Because yeah, most of the time you just know, I just know what is happening like if 1 year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think back on it, um, it's kind of, I mean, I was born in 1992. I wasn't alive in the 80s, but it feels like a memory of like uh, doing a lot of cocaine in the 80s. It was just like such a really insane and different time, and probably very unique. I doubt that I will ever be in such an environment ever again in my life.
Well, that's really great. So I'm just thinking about like you started as an intern as your first job,
Yes,
and now you are a software engineer manager at
yes,
Consensus.
yes.
So you have more leadership job and things like that. So at the Cryptalk, we always talking about how you can change your career, how you can move and start in the new career.
Sure.
So for you, you could grow up all your career at the same company,
Yes.
and normally this is just the what traditional people do.
Yeah.
But like you did the same thing, but in the blockchain company.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's so
Yes. Well, I mean, I got very lucky because I joined this little startup. Most startups fail, right?
yeah.
I just got lucky. Consensus succeeded. So I had the option of staying. And there were always interesting things to do. Like within Consensus, I feel like I've had many different careers. I mean, I've been an intern. I worked in like the enterprise consulting group. I was a smart contract engineer working on like cutting edge stuff. Um, I now work at Infura, which is basically like a SaaS platform, but one that solves like really, honestly, challenging like scaling problems. So doing these days pretty hardcore kind of classical software engineering in a blockchain context. Um, so as Consensus has grown as a company, I've been able to like bounce around and do lots of interesting and fun things within it. So that's kept me engaged for a long time. Um, yeah, I am in a management role now, um, which is, I was mentioning this to you earlier, as a software developer, you got to think for yourself. Do you want to go into management? You should assess that critically because it's very different being a manager than being a software developer is.
Yeah.
Um, I think that you know if you don't have to be like an amazing software developer to help to facilitate the work that amazing software developers can do. Like, I'm an okay software developer. I'm fine. Um, but I have okay people skills, and a lot of what I do within a large corporation like Consensus is trying to, as best I can, protect my team from a lot of the what I would just call corporate bullshit that goes on. There's a lot of stuff that happens in a large company which software developers don't need to care about, don't want to care about, which will be distracting from like the challenging, focused work that they need to do. Um, so I kind of act these days as like a buffer, or try to, between the broader consensus management organization, which is, always thinking about what's the next thing, and my team, which needs focus to like work on solving like pretty challenging technical problems. So um, there's definitely two paths, that one can take. You can be a software developer forever, for sure. But if you find that like solving people problems is like more attractive to you or something that you feel you're good at, and you know enough about software development that you can empathize with software developers, yeah, management is an option. So it's been an interesting. I've been in this management role for like 6 months now, so I'm still kind of figuring it out for myself. I feel I mean, my team is incredible. I mean, there's like extraordinarily talented software developers on my team, and yeah, I really feel that my job is just to like protect their focus and facilitate them so that they can, be free to do the great work that they're able to do.
Totally. And what do you think you have uh, for having a success career in the company, in the blockchain company?
A successful year? What does that
Yeah.
mean for me?
Yeah.
Well, Infura is in a competitive market. The Infura project began in 2016, and for a long time, for several years, Infura was literally the only company that did what we do, which is provide hosted blockchain APIs for developers.
So
And
you was, sorry, so for like 7 years, you were just like the blue ocean,
yeah, yeah,
not competitors.
yes, 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 yeah.
Why do
Not
you
not
think
7 years,
this?
maybe like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but it's a long time.
It was a long time.
But
So,
why do you think? It's like because it's so hard, the technology?
well, I think originally it was because the industry was just so small. There just were not that many people involved in the industry. And then doing infrastructure, which is what Infura does, is not as sexy as, smart contract engineering, as doing an ICO and making, $100 million in a day. Infura's business model is a relatively traditional like SaaS business model, software as a service. Developers pay us a monthly fee, we provide them with APIs. It's a traditional business model in a sense. So it's not like sexy and exciting. Um, I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's very exciting. If you're like a nerd, it's like a fun place to work because, as I mentioned, we get to solve like fun scaling problems. But uh, yeah, we had no competition at all for several years. I was not part of Infura then. I was in different parts of the consensus org. I think it was around 2019, maybe rough numbers. Other competitors in Infura's space started to emerge. Um, and at this point in 2023, it's a very competitive space that Infura is in. Very competitive. Um, and so, you know, frankly, for us, having a successful year is destroying our competitors.
People, like honest people.
Because yeah, we look around and there are some things that we feel we do a lot better than our competitors, and there are some things we look at our competitors and we say, oh, that's impressive. We should feel challenged by that and want to catch up to that. Um, so from a business perspective, yeah, I mean, business is brutal. It's about beating our competitors. From a software engineering perspective, what I would say a successful year is for my team is managing two concerns simultaneously. Now, what my team does is we're the Ethereum technology group at Infura, so we operate Infura's Ethereum API, which is, it's a major selling point of Infura, our Ethereum API. Um, and we also build technologies that can efficiently serve Ethereum data structures so that we can like provide this service and make money on it. We build these technologies and deploy them not just for our Ethereum blockchain, but increasingly to other EVM-based layer 2 blockchains that Infura offers. To give a little context, because of kind of the way blockchains started, the initial idea was that every user would be running a blockchain node on their own computer. That was the original kind of design hypothesis for how users would interact with blockchains. You'd run your own node on your computer. And blockchain clients, and especially Geth, there's a blockchain client, an Ethereum client called Geth, which is the kind of, de facto client, which is used for most of the Ethereum execution layer, took this design approach. And it turns out the design hypothesis was wrong. You can't really run a blockchain client on a laptop. You certainly can't do it on a phone. There's ongoing research to try to get us there, but that's not where we are. But these clients, despite the fact that you can't really run them on a laptop without like your laptop getting very hot and the battery dying very quickly, they are designed for like single user access. Like all the design characteristics of them are such that they imagine a single user is going to connect to this thing and use it for their own personal use. In Fira, we host blockchain nodes and we use them to serve requests to, thousands of users, which is not what these things are designed for. Uh, and it's expensive and inefficient to do common blockchain queries at scale. Like it's just computationally slow. And so you have to spend a lot of money on compute resources to be able to serve these things. So coming back to your question, what makes us successful from an engineering perspective is managing two competing things. One is continuously driving down our costs to provide these APIs with great performance and like super reliable uptime. We want to improve the unit economics of our business in serving these requests. We do this by building virtualizations, what we call service accelerators internally. So there are many requests you'll make to Infura where those do go to a blockchain node, but also many requests you make where the request is completely virtualized. It'll never actually go to a blockchain node because we index data, we cache data, we, build various systems to just be able to compute responses more efficiently than a blockchain node does. So building those, continually driving down our unit economics, and then at the same time, navigating the public Ethereum's schedule of hard forks and network upgrades. We don't get to set the schedule for these network upgrades. So it's like if the Ethereum, foundation or the Ethereum community decides, all right, April, there's going to be a network upgrade or a fork, and this is something that's actually going to happen later this year, we're going to change the encoding that has been used since 2015 to encode, data in Ethereum block headers from RLP to SSZ, because SSZ is better. It's like, okay, all right, we've been relying on RLP since 2015. Let's go into our systems and, find all the, dark, dusty corners where we never imagined we would have to like change out the encoder or the decoder for this type of thing. And so staying on top of those changes and being ready, before the upgrade so that things don't break. So we're always looking ahead to what's coming next and making sure that we're ready for that and can pass those network upgrades with zero downtime without our users ever noticing that anything has happened, and then simultaneously working to drive down our unit economics. So from a business perspective, a good year is beating our competitors. From an engineering perspective, a good year is running the business more efficiently, I would say, and with a high degree of uptime and reliability for our customers.
That's so amazing to know. I'm so really, this first podcast have been so incredible because I'm learning so much of you, and I'm sure a lot of you Brazilians in the house are learning a lot because, like, most of the thing you are just seeing like a user now, Yeah.
I know too much, I think. I know too much.
No, that like the perfect time, the perfect things. Just reading some comments. People
Sure.
are talking. Um, so yeah. So you're talking about the you talked a little about the roadmap, right? Like
Yep.
if he
Yeah.
so probably you'll be good. People know more about how is the roadmap right now.
Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. Uh, just recently in September, so September of 2022, we completed the Ethereum merge, which was an enormous years-long project. Since 2015, when I started, the merge has been 1 year away. It was 1 year away for 7 years. It finally happened in
Whoa.
2022. What the merge did was this is what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow here at the conference, is
Great.
it swapped out the Ethereum consensus mechanism from proof of work to proof of stake. We could talk about this for hours, but you know, basically, proof of stake provides enhanced security and censorship resistance guarantees for Ethereum while using vastly less energy, 99.9% less energy than prior to the merge. So that was huge. We have a network upgrade that'll happen on mainnet probably in April. We've already had it on the Gurley and Sepolia testnets. This is the Shanghai upgrade on the execution layer and the Capella upgrade on the consensus layer. There's a bunch of kind of minor improvements that have gone into this, but the headline feature is that validators on the Ethereum beacon chain will now be able to withdraw their winnings from the beacon chain if they like. So if you're an Ethereum validator, this is an important upgrade for you. You can now like take your stake out of the beacon chain if you want to do that. The big thing so I mentioned we're doing this RLP to SSZ upgrade. That's kind of an annoying thing for us at Infura to do. Not a huge deal for end users, but the Ethereum Foundation wants to do that, so that'll probably happen. The big user-facing feature that's coming later this year, most likely later this year, it could get pushed back, is something that has a funny name. It's called proto-dank sharding. It's kind of a bad name because in English, dank sharding sounds like something not great. But it's called proto-dank sharding. And
You don't have marketing?
that's that's on the Ethereum Foundation. That's not my.
Yeah, they don't have marketing.
I don't know. They got to change that name. But this is a big deal for users. So we have all these layer 2 networks that are running on top of Ethereum right now. The way an Ethereum block works today is we have a finite amount of structured, what I would call structured data space, where users can apply transactions, which make state transitions in the Ethereum virtual machine. So traditionally, applications were written, directly in the Ethereum execution layer, and users would affect state transitions directly against those applications. With the L2s, this execution model is kind of not ideal because what the L2s really want to be able to do is write arbitrary blobs of data to Ethereum. They don't really need to compute anything. Like off-chain, they may need to do computations, but having to shoehorn their unstructured data blobs into like the structured Ethereum transaction space is inefficient, and it precludes them from doing certain things that they would like to do. So with proto-dank sharding, we're extending the Ethereum block space to provide an unstructured area for binary data blobs. This is very nerdy that we're getting into. But what this will basically allow is it'll allow all the Ethereum L2s to anchor their trust roots into the Ethereum execution layer much more efficiently and in much more creative ways. So the kind of longer term Ethereum roadmap, talking about this a bit tomorrow, I could go on for a long time about this. When you're designing a distributed consensus engine, you're basically making trade-offs between throughput and decentralization. It's very easy to get greater throughput if you're willing to sacrifice decentralization, and then you're just like Facebook or whatever, you're a centralized service.
Yeah.
Ethereum takes the approach of pretty much maximizing decentralization at the expense of throughput. So throughput on the Ethereum main chain is actually, quite low. But the design philosophy that's being taken is that these layer 2 blockchains will they will be the places where like high throughput interactions are provided, and they will have trust roots or trust anchors in the Ethereum main chain. They can do that with small amounts of data using Merkle proofs. I don't know, stuff I'm not an expert on. But we could have like high throughput, layer 2 blockchains submitting like Merkle roots of their state to the Ethereum main chain. And if bad things happen in the process of like transmitting that state root to the Ethereum main chain, users can submit what are called fraud proofs to prove trustlessly that some malfeasance has happened. So anyway, that's kind of the longer term Ethereum roadmap. That's why we're adding this unstructured, binary data space for L2s to, write arbitrary data into. That'll help them function more efficiently.
It's so good to have like a more technical conversation.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I love technical conversations. That's why I'm a software developer.
You were the first dev at the Cryptalk podcast.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. First English podcast, first developer podcast.
Yeah,
Cool.
totally.
Well, I hope your listeners are into nerdy technical conversation.
Yeah, I'm a little nerd, so probably the public is too.
Cool.
That's so great. Yeah. So we are close to the to finish the podcast, but yeah, it's so interesting all the conversation. So I have a lot of double to order you. Um, so one thing is my mind is what is your plan for the next? Are you do you pretend to become a like entrepreneur? Because like you were basically entrepreneur at the consensus. You created most of the things there.
Well, I did not create most of the things there. I created some things there, but
Yeah, but like you need to feel as entrepreneur when like because you were there when started
yes, yes,
everything.
yes.
So the mindset is like a entrepreneur mindset.
Yeah. So I would like one day to start a company myself, because I think I could do it.
Yeah, sure.
I think I'm up to it. And I think starting companies is like, so we live in a capitalist society, right? No matter how you feel about that, whether you like it or you dislike it, it's just a fact. We do live in a capitalist society. And within a capitalist society, one of the most straightforward and effective ways to like change the world is to start a company. It's not the only way, but you know, uh, working within a large organization, there's only so much change you can really make as an individual. Um, but as a small company, you can do crazy things. You can do whatever you want. You can change the world. You can disrupt the big guys. Um, so yeah, I am drawn to the idea, very drawn to the idea one day of yeah, starting my own company. I don't know exactly what I would do yet. I mean, I've had some ideas in the past, but I've never, I haven't pulled the trigger yet. It's scary to be an entrepreneur. It's very comfortable to like collect a paycheck. It takes a lot of bravery, I think, to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, totally. But I'm sure you'll be good. And
Thank you.
when you created your thinking, you can come back to the crypto.
I would love that. I would love that. That'd be great.
Amazing. Yeah, and the other thing is in my mind. It's like uh, you have been here in the market for like 80 years. So what was the best and the worst thing you saw?
Um, I mean, the worst thing that I have seen, and that which we sadly continue to see, is people getting scammed.
Yeah.
Certainly this was happening in the ICO boom, but it continues to happen today. Y- you know, if you are a crypto user, you have to be careful. I mean, it's unfortunate, but there are various ways that you can be fooled into making an interaction which is not what you think it is. And, then you lose money. Um, and these are just criminals who are doing this. They're criminals. And I mean, they're organized criminal gangs that, they employ like hackers and, yeah, they scam people and steal their money. So that's continues to be like very discouraging. There's lots of people working on like finding ways to make this better for users, to make this safer for users, but that's the worst thing. Uh, the best thing I would say is what it has always been, which is the opportunity to create a new social, political, and economic operating system for the
Yeah.
planet. This world that we live in is imperfect. You can even say it's fucked up. And um, I think a lot of people don't have a huge amount of hope that the existing powers that be are going to make the necessary changes to create the world that people deserve to live in. And blockchains, by virtue of their decentralized and censorship resistant nature, they give everyone this level playing field to build something unstoppable, literally unstoppable, something that can't be turned off even by the most powerful government in the world. There's great scope to use that for evil, but there's also enormous scope to use that for good. And the hope that it will be used for good is something that I still hold on to strongly in my heart.
Yeah, and I hope you use this for good. Totally. That's so it was amazing. It was amazing conversation. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much to say yes for the first Script Talk podcast. I could learn a lot of you, and I'm sure you'll be a very unique podcast
Mm.
because like at least me, I didn't see any conversation like that in Portuguese.
Uh-huh.
So you are talking about to have something good for the life, maybe have a legacy, and I'm sure like this podcast can help a lot of entrepreneurs and like if people want just to start in the blockchain space because like it's it was just amazing conversation. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for speaking with me. It was great to do my first Brazilian podcast, and you were a wonderful interviewer. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You were the first gringo.
Oh, awesome! Wow, first gringo, first software developer, first English speaker. This is really a day of firsts.
And you'll be the first person we have our po-up. So when you finish, like you can just have this.
Amazing.
In Brazil, it's not so common to have a pop.
Okay.
It's more like in the international event. So we created the first secret talk pop here, and you have the number one. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm very honored.
So if anyone, we are on Spotify and Deezer, so people can just listen. But we are online on YouTube too.
Cool.
So just to show you for everyone, this is the like pop thing. I hope everyone can see. It's basically the QR code. And probably it's good you explain what is a pop.
Um, well, it's a type of NFT. I'm not really an expert in NFTs, despite this being an NFT conference. My understanding is it's a type of NFT that one gets for participating in a certain type of event. And then by virtue of collecting this unique, one-of-a-kind token, you could use it potentially to unlock unique experiences. You know, maybe because I have this POAP, I get like, VIP access to, the latest podcasts. So yeah, POAPs are an interesting use case for NFTs.
Great, great. Yeah, and probably I hope you become rich with this pop or you have a lot of benefits in the future.
I would love to become rich.
Yeah. So thanks so much for your time. And
course.
just to finish it, the Cryptalk, we always ask for people to say what they thinking about the podcast, what they could learn during the conversation, and things like that. And after they can just put our name, like a mention, on social media.
Okay.
So we can just like have cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, and the pictures. So guys, you can just take a picture of that. Yeah, so great. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And
Thank you.
yeah, just to finish, it was the first Script Talkie podcast in English. I'm so excited for everyone was recording and watching us. So thanks so much, and we continue tomorrow with one more podcast in English. So thank you for to be in the first block of our Crypt Talk blockchain. So see you tomorrow. Yeah,
Great.
it's
Great.
a real cheer.
Cheers.